What's going on, guys? Bourbon and Ball live here. Week 18, hottest hitters, hottest pitchers, coldest hitters, coldest pitchers, and some really good overperformers and underperformers we're going to be talking about now that the trade deadline for most leagues is passed. So some really good stuff. You're going to want to stay tuned. All right, guys. Happy Friday. This is Bourbon and Ball. I am Doug, along with my lifelong friend over there, Mikey V, coming from Clearwater, Florida. And man, the trade deadline has come and gone with a lot of explosions. A lot of explosions. I'm sure we'll get to them as we start talking about some of these colder and hotter players. But yeah, let's just dig right in, right? I mean, it's Friday. F it, man. F it.
Let's just go for it.
All right, let's talk some of the hotter hitters here, hotter players, hotter pitchers, all that good stuff. There they are. There's the ding. You got Tigers, catcher DH, Dylan Dingler, 88.9% owned, 400 on the week, 4 homers, 10 ribbies, 8 runs, 8 strikeouts, no stolen bases, 40 points, 6.7 a start. Cubs outfielder PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, 99.3% owned. He's hitting 346. He's got 2 homers, 6 ribbies, 9 runs, 8 strikeouts, 3 stolen bases, 36 points, 5.1 a start. I kind of say those 8 strikeouts because if these guys aren't performing, those strikeouts will hurt you at some point, but they're performing. So right now you're like 8 strikeouts. What they play? 6 games, averaging strikeout a game. That's not too bad, but they hit 4 home runs. He had 3 stolen bases. So all that stuff offsets. It's when they don't produce is when that stuff kills you. And then some honorable mentions here. You got Matt Olson, William Abreu, Caleb Durbin, and Rafaela from the Red Sox, 35 points. That's almost half the roster. You got Tigers, Kevin McGonigal, 33 points. And then Phillies, Byron Stott, he gave you 31 points on the week.
Man, where to begin? Let's start from the top, Doug. Let's talk about Dylan Dingler for a second. Little power surge, right? Really good matchups this week. I mean, man, he played against Seattle and hitting those home runs in each of those games this past week. And we did talk about Seattle's pitching this coming week, and we did think they were going to struggle a little bit. So that was kind of a good call on your part, Doug. We talked about that on Monday, and, you really kind of dig that. But Dingler, again, just having a great week. And then, PCA, MVP candidate for a reason, right? Putting those numbers together, really putting them together. Showing that consistency kind of week in, week out when it comes to his offense. Yes, the strikeouts are still there, but if he can produce like he has been with hitting that average, hitting power, and then also getting that stolen bases, yeah, you're going to do pretty well for yourself, I think, still. We're going to talk about a couple other guys too, Doug, like you just mentioned. Strikeouts can absolutely kill you if you're not doing those other things with home runs and stolen bases. We're going to talk about a couple players later about that, right? Because we have a couple players that were not producing and they struck out a lot, and that's kind of household names as well. But just a little sneak peek there. But going back to the rest of the list, though, Matt Olson, good for him, becoming a regular in this segment. 32 home runs to this point, most home runs he's had since 2023 when he had 54 with Atlanta. Really just kind of finding that power surge. Maybe he's going to be another 40 home run man again this year. So great to see him really bounce back from the previous couple years. Power numbers are still there, but still overall fantasy wise, he wasn't really producing like he was those few years when he was at the end of the season with Oakland and then the beginning of Atlanta. So really good to see him be bouncing back. We got to talk about the Red Sox, Doug. I mean, holy moly.
I was saving them for the overperformer segment later on.
It's hard to, but you got guys like Willie Abreu, who, again, hitting home runs, great series against Chicago, at the back end against the Dodgers as well, playing really good baseball. Caleb Durbin, my God, are we talking about Caleb Durbin being one of the best third basemen in the league right now when it comes to his offensive production? I know when it comes to fantasy perspective, the last 30 days, he's been the best third baseman in the league when it comes to fantasy. Just an absolute tear. That whole Red Sox team is on a tear. You just mentioned Rafaela too. I mean, we'll talk about them. We'll go deeper into them later. And then, like you said, who do you have here? Kevin Mack, right? We talk about Kevin Mack all the time too. Probably rookie of the year. Really just staying consistent. He's just kind of one of those fantasy love affairs. I feel like he's going to strike out not often. He's got a little pop in his bat, hits for average. I think he's kind of like a Luis Arias on steroids. I think that's kind of where he's projecting to, just because, again, the contact's there, the strikeouts are low, and he's got a little bit more power for sure than Arias does. But again, it's his rookie year. We really don't know what he's going to look like. We don't have a lot to forecast with, but we do love what we see so far to this point this year. And then Bryson Scott. Finally, someone for the Phillies is finally doing something. They have kind of had a little bit of a rough stretch these last few weeks, but now Bryson Scott, maybe they're starting to open up a little bit. We're going to talk about, Christopher Sanchez in a second too. So maybe the Phillies are starting to turn around a little bit now. But yeah, great week for Dylan Dingler, PCA. I have to, eat my words a little bit with him, because at the same time, I was not a PCA guy for sure. And he's proved me wrong to this point. He's been staying steady, and we're talking about him in August 7th. So really tough to knock him, right?
Is it bad that I'm still not like, I'm just very skeptical still. I'm like on that stage where like the strikeouts are still there. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, you're producing, and you were producing just as you were last year, and even later in the season, right? Because it was literally beginning of the second half, the switch was off for him last year. This year, it's still on, but the strikeouts are still there, and that's where the hesitation is, man. If he can cut them down, but I don't think he can.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably not. Like you said, you touched on it. 8 strikeouts this week. You only played 6 games. That's over a strikeout a game. Again, he's probably projecting about 180, 200 strikeouts this year, which is a lot. And we've seen guys survive that. We've seen guys that strike out a lot. We talk about Ohtani a lot. Obviously, he's a unicorn. But guys like Kyle Schwarber in the past, strikeouts a lot.
Yeah.
And Dylan Cruz, same thing. These guys have power in their bats. But and it kind of masks some of the ugliness that kind of comes with it as well. So again, we'll probably touch on a couple of these guys later in this next segment and when it's who's not. But again, if you can just, like I said, produce at a good clip, sometimes the strikeouts don't matter sometimes. It's just a little foreshadowing, I guess, when it comes to the strikeouts, right, Doug?
It's tough though, because you got to imagine like what's at some point though, you got to ask yourself, well, those strikeouts should catch up to you, right? And that's where it gets a little hesitant for me with those guys. I mean, when the good's going, it's going good. But man, when the bad is bad, it is really bad. And it's nice to see Olsen on here. I think he's been pretty steady on the who's hot. He's also hit the who's not a couple of times. So it's there. It is there. And that kind of goes right into some of these pitchers as far as who's hot and who's not. And what I mean by that is the big framer, the Predator himself, Tigers starting pitcher Framber Valdez. Man, 70% owned. I remember when that was 99%. He's down to 70% owned. But what a week. 2-0, 14 innings pitched, 11 strikeouts, 2 earned, 4 walks, 45.75 points. Now, again, they're not amazing matchups. Like, these are matchups that you would expect him to dominate, right? I mean, you're talking first start was at the A's in Sacramento. I mean, that's to me, he should dominate that start. Nick Kurtz isn't in that lineup. Shea Langoliers isn't in that lineup. I think he should. And then you talk about the Mariners, one of the worst offenses in the league. That's a start that he should go out and dominate. And he did. He's dominating the starts he should, which is good for him. I'm hoping it carries over. Early in the year, he dominated the Yankees. And everybody was like, well, maybe he's back. He wasn't. He got knocked around. Now, he's got, actually his last 3 or 4 starts have been pretty decent. I'm hoping he's turning the corner, but, fingers crossed. I did start him this week, which I was very happy I did. But, we'll see what happens what the rest of the year brings to him. Then you got Phillies Christopher Sanchez, 99.8% owned. He also went 2-0, but 11 innings, 17 strikeouts, 2 earned, 7 walks, 45.28 points. Again, starts he should be winning, right? At Baltimore, then at home versus the Nationals. Like I tell you, I watched that Nationals game, and the first 2 or 3 innings, he loaded the bases. He probably should have got knocked around. He should have given up a ton of runs, but it's a Nationals lineup with no James Wood. It's, no Luis Garcia. They were sellers. And I think if anybody else, if those people were still in that lineup, you wouldn't be seeing Christopher Sanchez pitcher on this who's hot right now. That's what I think. 7 walks, That's a lot of walks and 2 starts. And then some honorable mentions. You got Bryce Elder, 40 points. Brian Bello, 35.32 points as a relief pitcher. Kyle Freeland, 33.3. Dylan Cease, 32. And then Arizona's Mitch Bratt, 30 points. And finally, Martin Perez, who we had as a pretty deep sleeper in one of our recordings for our Monday show. He got a nice little 28.8 points on the week.
Yeah, that was a great start there. That was kind of a matchup play, right? And man, if you started him, it kind of paid off. It was great. But going back to Christopher Sanchez, I mean, it's not quite the same Christopher Sanchez that we've kind of known and loved, from April, May, and June. He's kind of struggled these last few, I say about a month or so, right, Doug? I say he hasn't really been that same electric guy that we've used to. So I think the Phillies at this point, and I think fantasy owners at this point, will take these 2 wins. I think they'll take the 11 innings, 17 strikeouts. I think that's better than what they've kind of been getting lately from a Christopher Sanchez. So it's kind of good to see him. But Doug, we got some new names on here. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's Mitch Pratt. From Arizona, again, just called up maybe a few weeks ago at this point, and really just starting to settle into that rotation. So again, if he's available in your leagues, he might be a good stash. We don't know what he's going to look like in the near future, but at least these last couple of weeks and these last couple of starts have been pretty good for him. So again, if you go to waiver wire, maybe just pick him up, see what's going to happen, right? Doesn't hurt. Doesn't mean you have to start him, but it's good to have just on side. Dylan Cease, right? Kind of making a comeback these last couple of weeks, Doug. Kind of climbing up the ladder in the AL Cy Young. The strikeouts have always been there. Now the wins are starting to come back. So Dylan Cease is starting to look like that top 10 pitcher that I guess that you drafted him in leagues and really just producing for yourself too. So it's really good to see there. Martin Perez, like we talked about. Brian Bello. You want to hear something crazy, Doug? I read a crazy stat about Brian Bello. It was a pitcher that had, I think, 40-plus innings started. He has the highest ERA as a starter when it comes to ERA with pitchers that pitched over 40 innings. Now, relievers that have pitched over 40 innings, Brian Bello has the lowest ERA. Interesting stat. Just throwing that out there. But it's funny because in fantasy, you don't really think about the long relief guys anymore. The guys that come in the second inning and then go 5 or 6 innings. But he's been really successful in that role. He really has been. And, it's not going to get you quality starts. That's for sure in a points league, and you have those. But really, he's been quality since he's kind of been into that role. So it's kind of a risky start, I guess, if you're going to have him go into your lineups and stuff. But he could steal a win for a week. Gets the strikeout still a little bit. It's just an interesting kind of, off the wall kind of guy. Now he has relief eligibility as well. So if you didn't need a reliever, maybe a guy like that kind of fits the bill for a little bit. Again, Red Sox are just crazy right now, winning baseball games. We always joke about 99 restaurants going to go out of business very soon. But Brian Bello is definitely a part of that team, and he's definitely producing. So again, maybe not a pickup right away, but definitely just keep an eye on him. I have him on my watch list right now, just for craps, just to say, what's going to happen with him. He looks really good these last few outings with him, even last night when he came in the 10th or 11th.
Yeah, held it down, shut him down, got the win.
Yep.
I mean, this is the time of year where it's like, baseball's such a long grind for pitchers. Batters too, but pitchers, I think, a little more. I mean, they're 6, 7 inning starters, and this is kind of where you separate the boys from the men, I guess, and see if that that grind does to your body, right? And this is where you'll see pitchers break down. And I don't know if Christopher Sanchez is breaking down. I can't tell you. I mean, a lot of walks, that is a lot. I mean, it's alarming. He hasn't looked right. Right. And when I say right, I mean like not as good as he was at the beginning of the year, like you said, right? So it's going to be, I know for me, my strategy toward the end of the year, and I don't want to give people my secrets. It's like my secret sauce. But if we have 6 starting pitcher slots, I do sometimes stream a starter or two, like just because I know they'll be there. I know they're fresh. I know, you know what I mean? It's like it's pitchers that's what makes these things so hard. And that's why you see like betting sites go so crazy is like, right, okay, Christopher Sanchez at the beginning of the year for the first 2 months was the number 1 overall, predicted National League Cy Young pitcher. Then kind of goes down a little bit. Miz comes up, and Chris Sale slowly comes back up. And then Christopher Sanchez now and Chris Sale like side by side. And if, something happens with Miz these last few months where maybe he does get innings cap, maybe you see him get skipped here and there, that might give some of them an opportunity to come up. And that's why it's such a long year. And that's why I think, pitchers are just so tough year in and year out to draft. It really is. I mean, you look at the first 3 pitchers that went off the board this year, 2 of them hit the IL and 1 of them stinks. So it is what it is with that starting pitching.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's tough to gauge. I think we've learned that, the last couple of years when it comes to starting pitching. You just really don't know what you're going to get with some guys. Paul Skeens, we didn't expect him to take a step back like this, he has so far. Last little zip on his fastball. Tarek Skubal's been very good still. He's still a very good top 2, top 1 pitcher for sure. But again, we just saw better from him last year. And then obviously Garrett Crochet, obviously been hurt all year. And then you could even take that a step further. If you talked about the top 10 pitchers that were taken, you could throw a Max Fried in there who's been really wishy-washy this year. I think even Cole Ragans was probably even drafted in the top 10 when it comes to pitching. He's obviously been terrible. We're about to talk about the not list. We're going to talk about another guy that was probably a top 10 pitcher that's in Texas that probably should have went to Atlanta. Hint, hint. Right? So again, it's just been really tough to gauge that, and it's probably the toughest position to scout when it comes to fantasy and the expectation you're going to get from these guys. I really do. I think it's a tough sell.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, giving up on pitchers, Framber Valdez, like I said, he's only 70% owned now. I mean, there was a point when he was 95, 99, and a lot of people probably gave up on him. But we've said throughout the show, throughout this year when we were doing the shows, his stuff's still there, and when he's good, he's good. We talk about the Yankees start. He went 7 innings. I think he struck out about 8 of them. No earned. That was great, but then he gets shelled the next couple. So I think on the flip, you can look at it from both ways. It's like, don't give up on a guy that's been struggling, but also a guy that's been red hot. Come to realization that might not carry for the rest of the year. Like, it's a very long year.
It is, and I'll ask the famous question to you again. I think you answered it a little bit. Is Framber Valdez back, Doug? It's a tough question. I know.
I think he is. I really do. But we'll have to see how he does against better competition. Those 2 games at the A's and Seattle. I mean, yeah, he won them both. It was good to see he won them both on the road. I will say that. That gives me a little more of a, okay, maybe he is back. But they're winnable starts. They're teams that he should go out and he should beat. Not that there's no surprises there. Talk to me when I think next week I do have him for our show, our recorded show that we drop on Mondays for lineups. I do have Framber Valdez as a must start against the Guardians. I think that's going to be like it's a good offense, not great offense. It's a good offense, and if he can go out and dominate the A's and he can dominate Seattle away, and then go to Comerica Park and play at home versus a little better offense with J-Ram and Kwan's hitting over there now and Delauto and all them. If he can go out and do that, to me, it's like another step up. So then what would be next after that? Well, let's see what he would do against the Red Sox, right? Let's see, because that offense is even better. So I think you just take it step by step with him. He's already walked 2 steps. So, let's cross the fingers and hope he makes it up the flight.
I think you're right. This could be a guy that could maybe even save some people's fantasy seasons toward the end of the year. This guy could just all of a sudden rip it off, I think. I'm not losing faith.
I can't lose faith. I own him.
at this point in the season, it's really tough to say, you have to ride you guys out sometimes. You really do. And this is a guy that, again, you just had really 2 good starts, both 7 innings, both got wins. It's hard to kind of turn your cheek right now to that. You gotta ride that out, I think. Right.
So let's start talking about some of the colders. The coldies right there. And of course, you see Mike Trout. He hits a home run today. He knew he was going to be on the show. That's why.
You know what it is, Doug? I think you need to you got to send me this. You send it to me pretty early anyway. We got to start making some home run bets with these who's not guys. I feel like every single time we have a who's not list, these guys are hitting homers every single time we're on the air. Every single week.
I'm telling
So
you, man.
I might dabble with that next week. We'll try that
I
out.
like
We'll
that.
experiment.
All right. So first and foremost, you got Angels outfield DH Mike Trout, 95% owned, 174, no homers, no ribbies, 1 run, 11 strikeouts, no stolen bases, -4 points on the last 7 days for the week. Yankees first base DH catcher Ben Rice. He's been pretty quiet lately, man. The last couple months, 99.7% owned, 0.59, no homers, no ribbies, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, no stolen bases. Didn't hurt you, didn't help you, gave you 0. Also, Kyle Schwarber gave you 0. Then you got Jazz Chisholm. You got Christian Yelich. They gave you 2 points. Murakami, Ketel Marte gave you 3. Mookie Betts, Drake Baldwin, and Xavier Edwards gave you 5. But all in all, honestly, I mean, that's not a bad list considering on prior who's not. You'd probably see like, -5 and a bunch of -1s and a -2. But to go from -4 to 0 to +5, I mean, that's not too bad for some of these guys.
No, it's not. But Mike Trout, though, I have to say, 11 strikeouts in a week. You just never know what you're going to get with this guy. He had a really good first half, but then again, it's like, I think, Doug, he is the most frustrating player, not just in fantasy, but I think in all of baseball, just because he's still with the Angels. He could be on a better team. I don't know how motivated he is at this point in his career. I just really don't know what direction to really think where Mike Trout's going at this point, whether if it's fantasy or in his career. I think he's just gonna, make his bed in Anaheim and just call it a career, and when it comes to, fantasy production with Mike Trout and even just any real Angel players, it's just so tough to trust. And, again, Mike Trout, it sucks to say it, but he might just be droppable at this point. You kind of hold it on hope, for a guy like this, kind of like a Giancarlo Stanton, right? Former MVP, used to hit mash home runs, used to be a lot better player years ago. And then again, it's just frustrating because again, the injuries pop up and it's just the inconsistencies. So, and then Ben Rice, what I was looking at Ben Rice's number, Doug. He hasn't had a hit in this month. He hasn't had a hit in August. That is nuts. That's crazy. So kind of been a rough start for him this month. And like you said, kind of last couple of weeks, again, that whole team has just kind of been struggling offensively.
Real cold.
And they had favorable pitching matchups this week, against the Cardinals, which isn't really an overpowering staff. And neither are the Cubs for that matter either. So kind of a tough week for the whole Yankee team as general. Like you said, Jazz Chisholm is on this list. And Kyle Schwarber, again, another guy that his home runs, his strikeouts mask because of his home runs and his production that he sends to that Phillies team. If he's not producing, he is probably killing your fantasy team right now. And again, between him and Jordan Walker, I think I sent you guys the stats earlier in the group chat. Only 1 home run since the home run derby since the second half started between Jordan Walker and Kyle Schwarber, which means they're both not producing these last 3 weeks, which is just not very good. So Kyle Schwarber, not very good this week. Murakami, we know what the MO is on Murakami. He goes through these lulls. He has the power for sure, but we do know the strikeouts are there so that he can absolutely kill you throughout the week. Ketel Marte, again, just having a rough week with Arizona. I think he will bounce back in the next couple of weeks. I still think he's a top second baseman. Some guys just go through bad weeks. It is what it is. Ketel Marte will get a pass from me this week. I'm cool with, and I think from you too, Doug. I think you are a Ketel Marte owner yourself. You have some stock in him, and I think you agree with that. This has kind of been just a chalk up as a bad week because who was it? Timmy Tower. Timmy Tower's been hitting home runs over there this week.
Yes,
one of
they're still in the thick of it. You know what I mean? It's crazy. You figure San Diego's up there, but no, they're second in division. They're right up there in the wild card. They have a really good shot, man. And I'll tell you, it blows my mind because it's really just the offense is good. You know what you're getting, but that rotation is just so makeshift, so yuck. And to see that they actually still have a puncher's chance here to get the playoffs is pretty amazing for them. It's a great story.
Yeah, and speaking of their rotation, we did see Brat on the hot list, right? So you're starting to see some new names in that rotation that are actually producing, which is very, very surprising. And, some maybe that aren't, this week, right? That we're about to talk about. and Erod. But, for the most part, it's just kind of like a mixed mutt of, pitchers in that rotation. You just really don't know what you're going to get out of that rotation. And then Zach Gallen is still on the IL too. Geez, rest in peace, I feel, with him. Like, just the last couple of years have just been disasters for him. But again, just, he just a mixed bag. But yeah, I think they're right in it. Padres, I still love the Padres team. Like them for a minute now. I think they made some great moves at the deadline, getting Casey Mize, getting Robbie Ray, solidifying that rotation, giving them major league starters. Walker Buehler's really not cutting it, right? Not going deep in the game. So Lucas Giolito project might be over at this point. So I think those were two very good moves, for them to stabilize that rotation down the stretch. But yeah, I think that race is probably the most compelling race, even though the Dodgers are, way in first place in that division. You got teams like you said, Padres and Diamondbacks that are still hunting for a playoff run.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the rest of the year shakes up. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about some of these pitchers. And man, to me, there is no surprise here. No surprise at all with the first man, Guardian starting pitcher Foster Griffin. And Mike, you called it. You said that the Nationals kind of struck gold with him, and so that they should just sell him high, and that's what they did. They sold him high. 81.8% owned, 0-2, 9 1/3 innings, 9 strikeouts, 11 earned, 4 walks, negative 7.52 points. First start was at Atlanta against the Braves. His next start was at home versus the Mets. He lost them both. Again, a horrible month, horrible 6 weeks. I feel like those innings have kind of crept up, and the secret's out, really. Dodgers starting pitcher, relief pitcher Justin Roblowski, 80.1% owned. He went 0-1, 4 1/3, 4 strikeouts, 7 earned, 3 walks, negative 5.92 points. That was at the Cubs in Chicago. And man, once I'm done giving this, we should give a little, man, that whole Dodger team is looking a little rugged. They might be limping in the playoffs. They're going to get there. They're going to win the division. No doubt about that. But how they finish is going to be, to me, is going to dictate how long this run is going to go. I know they got a couple people coming back from that rotation to help them out, but they desperately need it. That's for sure as of now. And then some honorable mentions like you had talked about. That both Rangers pitchers, like Jacob deGrom, -5, Nate Eovaldi, -3.6. You got Joe Ryan and Erod, -3. Kyle Bradish and Freddie Peralta, -2. And then Reed Detmers and Sean Burke, the man I traded, -1.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that White Sox rotation getting a little shaky lately. We saw the rise and fall, I feel like, of Dennis Martin when it comes to fantasy perspective. I think Dennis Martin at this point maybe only has 15 to 20 points in his last 5 or 6 starts combined. Just really, almost droppable at this point in some leagues. But yeah, again, Sean Burke had a great, 5-6 weeks or so, going 6 innings, putting up strikeout numbers as well to go with that, giving you quality starts. He was serviceable, but now I think it's starting to catch up to him again. Some of these guys, inning limits are going to be a thing, right? And we can go right back to Forrester Griffin on that. We talked about that. We're kind of a broken record with it. We knew this was going to happen a little bit. We knew he wasn't going to be the same guy he was in the first half. And then guess what? You're not in DC anymore. You're just not. You're not going to get the run support. And then that support, like a James Wood, that CJ Abrams, that was a really good lineup. They're a really fun offense lineup, but now you're in Cleveland. Cleveland's not going to give you that same run support that you usually get. So he's going to have to pitch really, really good for him to, be more serviceable like he was in the first half. So I don't know. I think I had Forrester Griffin, I put him in a deal. It was kind of, kind of a sell high. It was maybe 2-3 starts right before he just got traded. And man, I'm really glad I did because, I got a couple guys back that are more serviceable, I think, down the stretch than maybe a Forrester Griffin might. But again, you just have to really be careful with Forrester and just, almost turns into like a matchups type guy moving forward. And like you said, Doug, I think you might have to start being worried about the Dodgers going down the stretch. Maybe not so much from a fantasy perspective, but I know obviously World Series is always going to be the goal for them. But you got to think there must be some wear and tear with some of these guys. You're playing what? You're playing a division series. You're playing a championship series. You play a World Series, right? You're playing at least almost 20 games or so extra throughout the year. And they've done it back-to-back seasons so far, which means that's almost an extra quarter of the season that they've played. So again, going in down the stretch here, are they going to be sustainable? Right, that rotation. Otani's probably not going to be part of that playoff rotation, but Yamamoto's going to be. And then you got a couple guys that are in that rotation, and Scooble, obviously, for sure. But again, the Glasnow, the Snells, really don't know what you're going to get with those guys when they come back. You hope for the best, but you really don't know. So I do think that NL is not as locked up as people think it is when it comes to the Dodgers automatically making the World Series. I do think there are some very good teams in the National League that in one series that they can give the Dodgers a run. So it's not just a guaranteed, punch your check in and you're winning again for the third straight year. I just really don't think that's going to be the case. I'll tell you what, let's talk about Freddie Peralta, Doug. I'm a Freddie Peralta guy. I was really excited about the trade. And what happens when it comes to Tampa, and we've seen this years and years and years, is that we've seen broken pitchers come to Tampa and get fixed. Now, Freddie Peralta played against Colorado in Colorado. Wasn't the most favorable matchup for him. And it was his first matchup. So you're not going to fix a guy overnight. You're not going to just go to a place and just say, hey, all of a sudden I'm this new player. I think there's some work to be done. I do want to mention that when Scooble went out on, I believe it was last Tuesday when he had his start, he met his catcher about an hour and a half before the game started. And the catcher said he's only spent about 20, 25 minutes with him before he started catching for him. So again, Freddie's going to Colorado. He's catching. Who's his catcher? Liam Hicks, who also just got traded there. So everyone's new. He's still getting his feet wet. I think over time, I think he's going to be serviceable for the Rays in the playoffs, but you might have to hang it up for the fantasy season because it's going to take him a few weeks, I think, for them to work with him, figure out what the kinks are. I'm just a believer. I'm optimistic about the playoff run for the Rays, but from a fantasy perspective, I don't know if Freddie Peralta is really going to be that serviceable for you going down the stretch. Is that a fair assessment, you think?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I was just going to say, we have a guy in our league who always says, well, I got all these guys that are going to be traded to contenders. Well, listen, if you stink now, there's a good chance that you're going to still stink. And that's what you're seeing. I mean, Scooble's a great pitcher. I think he can be productive and win no matter where he goes. So that's going to happen, right? But like a Kevin Gausman, he just gave up. He's got 20 pitches, no strikeout, just gave up a run in the first against Kansas City. That's just how it is. I think there is some point to what you're saying. Let's get familiarized with the organization, with your teammates, with your battery mate and catcher. But I also think that if, you're having a bad year, you're just having a bad year. And at this point, you're just kind of like a Kevin Gausman. I feel like he's just like, man, I want to go to playoffs, but I also want to get this year over with. I want to start fresh.
I read something on him that he didn't want to play against Toronto.
I did read that too. He didn't specifically ask, but he said, if possible, can you please, I just hope I don't play against them.
Man, you would think that's like, a revenge game, Like if you're a gamer, you try to find any competitive edge that you got, your team traded you because you're not good enough for them. You think that would fuel a player to go in there. And he's playing for a competitor in the Twins. Yes, I'm saying that right now. But there are in playoff contention in that AL Central still. So you would think he would have some more heart. You think he would have some more grit. You would think he would take this opportunity to shove it to him and say, hey, you made a mistake by trading me. And he's saying, no, I want to cop out of it. I don't want to play against my former team. That's just, I don't feel comfortable doing that. What are we talking about? That tells me a lot about a player, Doug. That tells me almost everything I need to know in a player, if he's a competitor or if he's just there making the movements. So I'm out on Gausman, I think, forever, because I'm not going to forget that. Yeah. Who doesn't want to play against their former team and stick it to them? That's the best thing in sports. It's one of the most favorite things.
Well, I think what people tend to forget too is that, okay, so Toronto traded him. Toronto's still in this race. They're 3.5 games out of the wild card. They're not they're in this. So to go out and trade Gausman, if I'm Gausman, I'm like, well, what the hell? Why are you trading me? We're still in this. We're in the hunt. We can still go out. We can make some noise. We still got almost 2 months left, a month and a half, give or take. We can go out there and we can get, make some noise, make a push, make a run. Let's get to the wild card. Let's make the playoffs. No, Gosman, the only reason we're probably not in the playoffs is because you stink. So we're going to trade you. Okay, so you go to the new team and you're like, you know what? If possible, I just don't want to pitch against them. I'm right there with you. You know what else I also read today was that Scooble went out on record and said, before he got traded, he said, if I get traded, I get traded, but I'd love to come back and finish my career and sign a long-term contract with the Tigers. So that would be kind of interesting to see what pans out with that. You know, it could be, hey, listen, maybe like let's make some moves that will make us look like sellers and buyers because they're not out of it either, right? They still have a puncher's chance. Mm-hmm. But we'll trade Scooble. We'll get these tons of prospects, and let's see if we can re-sign them with these prospects.
They could.
It's a good strategy.
They could. They absolutely could. But it's just funny how it goes like that, though, you know? And then, like, I don't know what Toronto's even doing, to be honest, because then they go out and trade for Jose Soriano, and it's like, man, you know, it's like
you just had a Soriano. Kevin Gosman is Soriano.
You know what it is? It's like, you know, I'm eating Wendy's French fries, and I traded my Wendy's French fries to get some Burger King French fries. Like, that's how I feel. It's just so both guys are so mid, right? And it's just like, what's the point of trading a Gosman if you just kind of trade for Jose Soriano? You know, I don't know what's going on there in Toronto right now. And like you said, they are in it still. But again, I don't know what the strategy is with that right there.
Me either. So let's, I mean, man, the time is flying by. These hours are going really quick, dude. All right. So we usually do sell high, buy low type segment. But because some trade deadlines have passed, specifically the MLB deadline, and most fantasies, I want to say, I decided to switch this up into overperformers. So let's talk about overperformers and underperformers for the week. And almost similar to sell high, buy low, you know, guys you drafted, guys that are underperforming, guys that are overperforming. Can they keep it up? That's the real question in this segment. Can they keep it up? So I am going to start, and this one might be a little cheat. Might be a little cheap because it's not a specific person. It's a team. And there they are. Our Boston Red Sox. Red Sox offense, we said Rafael, 41 points, 6.8 to start. William Abreu had 38. Durbin had like 30. Jerry Duran had around 25. Like, you know, you're seeing most of this Red Sox offense hit to this level. I mean, it's great. It is a great surprise for fans, but I think thinking it would last would be a little silly. Hey, listen, these guys, they're barely averaging a little over 2 points a start, even with these performances. You know, Rafael, he's at 2.5. He's the best out of all of them. Abreu, 2.4. Durbin, 2.3. Duran, 1.7. I think the fact that they are still winning games, especially against teams like the Dodgers, and then sweeping them is incredible. And they could probably still continue to do it. But just don't expect these stats week in and week out. During their win streak, I mean, they never produced these stats. They were just consistent for the most part. And, I mean, how often did you see them on this Who's Not segments that we do? I don't think we've ever seen maybe you've seen Abreu on there. I don't think we saw Rafael on there. You know, I definitely didn't see Duran on there, that's for sure. But, you know, that just goes to show you that it's – that win streak they had that none of them made the Who's Hot list is because everybody was producing when the other person wasn't. So it was like almost like every other game, somebody came out to be the hero. I mean, I can see the consistency continue, but the power explosion from the last 7 days, I mean, that's something you have to expect is going to kind of just dissipate as time goes on. I mean, it's a great story. I wish it would last forever. I mean, it's still continuing today. I mean, they're up 9-1 with Peyton.
9-1 now?
And can I just tell you, before I have Peyton Tolley as a must start Monday. I had him on there as a must start 2 days ago when I wrote the script for Monday. And look at him. He is dealing tonight. So don't think I did this because of tonight's start. I did it even before tonight's start.
Well, we have to talk about the Red Sox. I mean, how can you not? It's just an insane run that they're on right now. Look, you know, I'm looking at Willie Abreu's numbers, and again, he's been pretty consistent, you know, when the last couple of years here when it comes to his power, production for the most part. Actually, it looks like this year he's actually going to exceed pretty much all of his seasons combined. Not combined, but his best season to this point, you know, since being with the Red Sox. Same thing with Rafaela. I was very surprised to see his strikeout numbers. Actually, he's at 93 strikeouts and 112 games. You know, that's pretty good, you know, when it comes to the Ks. And like you said, 2.5 is actually serviceable. when it comes to fantasy. So again, he should at least be rostered multiple positions, right? Second and outfield. But like you said, some of these guys that are on this Red Sox team are definitely starting to maybe overproduce a little bit, right? We just talked about Willie Abreu having a great week, hitting home runs, 4 out of 5 days, give or take, just having a great streak. We can't expect this to last. We want it to last, obviously, but we just can't expect it to last. And we just got to keep a pulse on this Red Sox team. We really got to see when they're going to slow down. And I don't know, Doug. They're playing Oakland, or I always say Oakland. I just can't get out of it. Bad habit. They're playing the A's, and again, I expect them to probably sweep them because the A's aren't very good. They just fired their general manager today, so they're going through a little bit of a turmoil situation toward the end of the year, trying to figure out what direction they're going to go in. But right now, the Red Sox are all cylinders. I mean, Caleb Durbin, like we just said, best third baseman in fantasy the last month. Who would have thought that? That guy changed hitting coaches and just said, you know what? I'm not going to listen to my team coaches. I'm going to go over the Saugus. I'm going to crush some baseballs and learn how to hit again. And he's been awesome. Obviously hitting the walk-off yesterday as well. Just an absolute stud. When I say we, when I mean the Red Sox traded for Caleb Durbin, a lot of people in comment sections online, social media, Facebook, everything, they were saying, man, you guys got a good one there. You're going to love him. You're going to love him. And man, it took a little bit. Obviously it was really dicey in the beginning of the year with him. He was ice cold. I don't even know if there's anything colder than ice, but he was that. But now he's comfortable. He's hitting the ball well. I don't know, Doug. I think Caleb Durbin's kind of the real deal. I see him. He's a gamer. He's great at the plate. He doesn't strike out, like just a really good player. Now, on the flip side, let's talk about Jared Duran. He's had a pretty good week so far as well. He hit a home run today, at least one, since I've looked. What are your thoughts on Jared Duran? We talked about him. He wasn't even hitting 200 when we talked about him last week. So what's your take on him?
I mean, it's a good story, right? I still don't see him sticking around with the club. I mean, just because of like everything that's been going on between the fans and him and the things that were said, and kind of like a middle school thing. It's weird. It's like, grow up. Like, hey, fans are going to get drunk and they're going to talk trash. That's just what they do. If you're struggling, they're going to bust your balls. That's what fans do. They get obnoxious and they drink. Like, what do you expect is going to happen? So I don't know. I feel like I'm surprised they didn't trade him a little bit. I really am. But I also get, the potential was there, right? I mean, what he's capable of when he's going. I mean, the guy could have, I think he was maybe like a top 5 MVP vote getter 3 years ago, with the stolen bases and the home runs and he's great when he's going. He just hasn't been going the last year and a half, 2 years.
You know what they did? They did the opposite. They didn't trade him. They gave him a vote of confidence.
Yeah.
They called him up and said, hey, we want you here. We want you producing. We're not trading you. Do your thing. And I think ever since then he has. I think he's done pretty well this past week since the deadline has passed. Like you said, he was a top 5 MVP candidate a couple of years ago. Having a really good day today. Doug, you didn't tell me Peyton Toley has 11 strikeouts in 5 innings. And only
That's why I told
pitches.
you I put him on the list even before today's start. So I'm not cheating. I had him on there. Yeah.
You did. Yep. And 11 strikeouts, only 65 pitches. I mean, holy moly, this guy's about to have a career night right now. But man, yeah, I mean, these guys, you could talk even about the pitching too. We talk about Sonny Gray a lot, low key Cy Young candidate, probably not going to win Cy Young, but he is a top 5 pitcher in the American League for sure. His numbers are there. It just supports it. I think he's overproducing a little bit this year for sure. I don't think anyone had Sonny Gray at 36 years old slinging it for the Sox this year. And then, you get the other guys like a Peyton Toley, again, pitching very, very well, but he hasn't been absolutely stellar this year. Great matchup for him against Athletics. But again, this is a guy, if you still have your trade deadline, that's a little bit, later down the stretch here, maybe that's a guy you might want to move after this start, because again, I think the matchups are going to get a little bit more difficult for him down the stretch here. I see a lot of more interdivision matchups coming down the stretch. But again, I think if you do still have opportunities to make trades in your leagues, you might want to take a look at some of these guys on the Red Sox and say, you know what, these guys, they can't win 40 out of 45, right? They can't win 40 out of 50, right? Something has to give here. So again, this is an opportunity to kind of, look at the board and say, what can I do and improve my team? Because again, we're about 4.5 weeks, 5 weeks until playoffs here when it comes to fantasy. So it's really crunch time now. Do you ride these guys out at this point, or do you want to maybe decide to maybe move on?
I don't know. I mean, I think I would ride some. I think I would move on from some. I mean, I think it's a mixed bag with some of these guys.
I totally agree.
So let's look at another overperformer, and this one's a pitcher. And there he is, the Weather, Ryan Weathers, the Yankees starting pitcher. What a week, man. 2-0 in his last 3 starts. In those 3 starts, 18 2/3, 17 strikeouts, 1 earned. I mean, the guy looks great. But again, prior to those 2 and 3 starts, he was really struggling. Barely go past 5 innings. Still has a 3.79 ERA for the year, but he's averaging 8.8 even after the 2 wins. So that tells me where there'll be an adjustment period where Weathers might be reverting back to giving up some more runs again. I honestly can't tell you when that will happen, but I would say sooner rather than later. I mean, if you want to continue to roll out and roll with him right now, I get it. But don't be surprised if he falls back down to earth while you have him going. I think that's the problem with these guys is they'll fall back down. You just don't know when. And usually it happens when you start him. So hopefully he's not in your starting lineup when it happens. But for now, he's definitely overperforming. These last 2 or 3 starts to me. I mean, he's given up 1 earned in 3 starts in almost 18 innings. He's still got a 3.79 ERA. Still only averaging you 8.8 start. So it's not good. It really isn't. So I think he's overperforming. I think if he did start in the last couple of starts, good for you. Kudos. But the real question is going to be how long are you going to keep rolling out with him before you realize that at some point he will kind of regress.
Yeah, like we talked about the White Sox staff earlier. He had a game against the White Sox, and again, just kind of a good matchup for him, I think, overall, going 7 innings, 4 Ks, and then playing against St. Louis. Again, a pretty friendly matchup there as well. And look, I'm looking at his career numbers. He's got 121 innings pitched this year. He's got 22 starts under his belt. Those are both career highs right there alone. We always kind of hammer Forrest and Griffin kind of for the same thing. But again, you might start seeing some of that, regression start to happen toward the end here just because, wear and tear is starting to happen. He's stretched out to the max. This is, again, the most starts he's ever had in the season. And, yeah, a great couple of last starts, like you said. But, again, track record's everything to me. And the track record tells me that you're not going to see a guy like a Weathers probably go 7 innings again this year. If he pitches 7 innings again this year, I will do whatever the first comment is on this chat right now. Like, that's how confident I am that he's not going to go 7 innings again. It's just not going to happen. So again, and I always think about the schedule as well. Down the stretch, you're going to have more division games coming up. I think that's really, really important to talk about because he pitches for the AL East. AL East is razor close. Yes, the Rays are still in first place. Obviously, Boston's sneaking up, quickly. They're a half game behind the Yankees going into tonight, I believe. So they're almost in second place. So it's not just a slam dunk for the Rays to win this AL East because, again, they're going to be playing a lot of these teams head to head. And, again, I just don't know if Ryan Weathers is going to be, again, that same guy that we just saw him against St. Louis going 7 innings. Is he going to be that same guy when he pitched against the White Sox? I don't know. I think he's going to have a couple more difficult matchups down the stretch here.
No, I totally agree. So let's talk about some overperformers. I mean, some underperformers, excuse me. Those were overs. Let's talk some unders. And the first one, come on. You had to put him on here, right? Braves outfielder Ronald Acuna Jr., 217 on the week, 2 homers, 2 ribbies, 5 runs, 8 strikeouts, no stolen bases. He's giving you 12 points for the week to a start. I think we all agree that Acuna is not worth a second or even third round pick in drafts. Averages over a strikeout a game, gives you 2.4 start, which, I mean, it isn't bad, but again, it's nowhere near the production of a guy you draft that high. We've always said that he was a bit overrated. I'll continue to say that. However, he is underperforming hard. I mean, since being back from the IL, his numbers have looked atrocious. I hope for the Braves fact it doesn't continue because, as overrated as I think he is still the cog in that lineup. And I think his bat in it, whether it struggles or doesn't, still makes everybody better. He's still a good fantasy performer, just not as good as everybody thinks he is.
I 100% agree with this. He hasn't played in 100 games since 2023. He's been injury these last few years, including this year. Right now, he's at a 63 games. And 63 games, he's only averaging 2.4, like you said. That's not a late first, early second, not even a third. We're talking about a guy that only has, in our league, 163 points, which is, again, about half of what he should probably have if he was playing to his full potential. He should be more in that 350 range if he was at his, prime, home runs, stolen bases, the strikeouts. He's still not striking out, so that's still pretty good. But still, it's just not the same guy that we did see years prior. And again, I'm looking at his career, Doug, and I think we've kind of did a deep dive on him in the past. It's a lot of injuries. That one outliner year that he had, that MVP year, it was an incredible year. But you just have to talk about guys that are just having career years. I think you can make an argument PCA's having a career year. We talked about Cal Riley last year having 60 home runs. That's a career year. We thought he was going to be a little bit more production, going into the season this year, not 60 home runs. But again, you just have to call a spade sometimes. And Acuna is just one of those guys that he peaked and then he has the wear and tear. He's got 2 knee surgeries. It's just, you have to reevaluate guys, not just by their name, but you have to do it by their stats. You really do. And I think we're all guilty of it sometimes. I think we all have our guys. I think Ronald Acuna, when he's on, he's a cool cat. Let's just call him a cool cat. Because when he's out there, he's got swag. He's stealing bases. He's got the different colors like you saw in this picture right here with the armbands and everything. He's a fun player. But you got to stay on the field. In fantasy, it's all about the numbers, unfortunately. It's not just about how you look and how you play in the field and everything. It's about how you hit. So, unfortunately, when it comes to fantasy, this guy is extremely overvalued.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I think at some point, I wonder, like in future drafts, when are people going to realize the injuries are there? Not only that, he's getting a year older. Every single year, he's getting older and older. The injuries stack up. You got to put that into perspective, I think, when you draft him. I mean, you're not drafting the Acuna from 3 or 4 years ago. You're drafting a 3 or 4 year old older Acuna version of himself, which those numbers I don't think will ever be attainable for him ever again. I don't think.
I don't think so. And this is his 8th year in the league. He's only 28, but he came up young. So it's just, you think age, oh, you're in your prime, you're this and that. But some guys just get called up early and they kind of, flame out a little bit earlier as well in their careers. And I'm not saying that Acuna's flaming out and he's totally trash and this and that. I still like the guy. I do. Yeah. I really do. It's just, again, it's the expectation. If I can get an Acuna in the 7th or 8th round, that might be a little bit more of a better value of it. But again, if he's only got 163 points and we're in the beginning of August, that's still not very good. So I'm kind of curious where he's going to go in drafts. We're going to have, our, top, whatever, 300, 500 guys. And, we're going to plan stuff in the off season and build up position rankings and everything. And, I think I'm really, and you know what, Doug, I'm really looking forward to that because I think we're brutally honest at times. And I think sometimes when I see rankings from other guys and stuff, I don't think they're truly honest because I think they take sometimes into account of like how they were before, not so much what they're going to be, for the coming season, if that makes sense. Like, how many times have we seen J-Rod at the top of
Austin
Riley, top 5 third baseman, Jazz Chisholm, top 5 second baseman, if not number 1 second baseman. Like, I don't know where these guys get these freaking rankings. So we're gonna smash the glass and we're gonna break that this coming off season. So I'm really looking forward to doing that with you, Doug. We're gonna get some realistic expectations out there.
Yep. And I get it though, when you make them, you're like, okay, the potential, the potential. But what do we always say? I mean, the potential's always there until it's not. Like how long are you gonna keep saying the potential until you realize maybe there is no more potential anymore? Maybe it was just a flash in the can and that was it, you know?
I mean, I hate to say it, but you could argue the same thing with Trout. He just did it a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, I mean, he's older. He's on his way. I think. I mean, I say older. I know he's not like crazy old because he started really young too. But the injuries, it's the injuries, man. Like I think at some point you kind of forget about age and you're just like the guy's been hurt so much. His body's just. He might be like Acuna Jr. might be 28 years old, but his body is like 40. How's that? Does that sound better?
That sounds better. And yeah, Mike Trout's 35 too. He's no young buck when it comes to the baseball years.
Well, we'll see what happens, man. We will see how he finishes. I mean, Hall of Famer for sure. But all right, let's talk about another underperformer real quick. And he kind of is, but he kind of isn't. There he is, man. You know him. Dodgers starting pitcher Yamamoto, 0-1, 8 innings, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk, 3 earned, 3 points versus Boston. Is it me or has his ERA been on the upward trend recently? 6 earned at home versus the Diamondbacks, 3 earned at home versus the Red Sox. You could make the case that if you look at his starts, his pitching is worse at home. Now, he still averages 15.3 points a start on the year, and he's almost a lock for a quality start. He's got 15 quality starts in his last 19 games, but he is not making it look easy. He's not that lockdown ace that everybody thinks he is he? Like, I don't think he is. I'm not sold on him being that guy. I see him as a 1B, 1C type guy. Not saying he's not good. That would be crazy. I'm just saying maybe next year, not drafted in the second round. To me, an ace is someone who rarely implodes. I mean, maybe once every few months, and Yamamoto is kind of starting to do it a little more frequently. The innings are there for him. And man, you have to ask yourself when these deep playoff runs over the years, how have they impacted these guys? And it might take a year or two for them to finally show. And I think Yamamoto's might be starting to show a little bit because he has been underperforming lately. And when I say that, I mean, based off of where you drafted him. I mean, listen, he's definitely you're going to start him, right? Every start just because. But I would just keep in mind that he can give up runs in bunches. And sometimes the strikeouts aren't even there. They're not even enough to help. Here's a crazy stat. Of his 19 starts, he's had 6 starts of 5 strikeouts or less. I think he had 1 for 3. He had 1 for 2. Still great arm. Just, I think, underperforming a little bit. I think people, when they drafted him, a little bit of that MVP magic that we always talk about, that Corey Seager had, kind of rubbed off. And they drafted him a little sooner than I think they should have. And now you're kind of seeing it underperform based off of where he was drafted, in my opinion.
I think that's fair. He was a top 5 pitcher off the board for sure. You got the big 3, and he was kind of right behind him in that late second round, early third round for sure. He's got over 300 points. He's SP 11 right now, so a little outside the top 10. But again, you expect a little bit more from him, so he's not too far off. But like you said, he's going to have some wear and tear. He's been pitching in these playoff games as deep as anyone. Obviously, he was fantastic last year against Toronto. In that World Series run, but again, it's going to catch up to these guys. It's going to have to, and we just don't know when that's going to happen. We're not saying it is going to happen this year, but like you said, some of these starts are kind of clunkers, and the consistency isn't as consistent as it was in years past. And then also 6-man rotation. It's not like he's throwing a dog bad game. I had to almost cuss there, but if he's throwing a bad game, it's not like he's going to have a second outing right after to mask it, right, for the rest of the week. So it's just kind of an up and down season. I don't think he's a bad pitcher by any means, no. But again, the expectation I think was a little bit higher, and you're just not really getting what you thought so far to this point.
So if we were going to redraft again, would you draft Chris Sale ahead of him, or would you go him in front of Chris Sale?
I would draft Chris Sale in front of him. I think you can make an argument that you can draft Dylan Cease in front of him. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but 5-man
Okay.
rotation, strikeouts are there. And again, like we just talked about, he's getting wins. So I do think Yamamoto's value maybe did take a little bit of a hit, but I still think he's still going to be a, third, fourth round pick in most leagues, just because, again, plays for the Dodgers. It's kind of a safe pick in a sense. I feel you're going to
Yeah.
get at least a top 15 pitcher, throughout the whole entire year. But yeah, it's just, again, you just had better expectations, I think, going into the season for Yamamoto, especially being 28, pretty much in your prime, stretched out. I think he had 177 innings last year. He's at 130 this year. Add on the playoff run for sure. That puts him around 200 last year, probably, give or take. He's right there again. He's going to be right in that ballpark again. So at least he's building up some consistency numbers there, going into next year.
Yeah, I remember his I think his second full year when he hit the IL to start the year and didn't look good. There was some.
That was his first year, yeah.
Oh yeah, his first year. There's some concern. He ended up pulling out of it. I mean, maybe Roki is kind of on that same trajectory where it takes you a year to get used to everything, and then maybe you come out on top. So fingers crossed he does. I mean, because when Roki's going, he's going. So who knows?
Hey, fingers crossed for Roki next year too. That's a nice little sleeper there you can get later.
Oh, for sure. But, all right, man. Well, that is it. We had a chance to talk about the hottest hitters, the hottest pitchers, the coldest hitters, and the coldest pitchers, and talk about some overperformers and underperformers today. So that was really fun. Don't forget, we're live here every Friday. Join us, like us, heart us, all that fun stuff. Talk in the chat. Pull up a drink next Friday night. Have a conversation with us because we love shooting the shit about fantasy baseball. Also, don't forget, on Mondays, we do drop our weekly lineups and pitching matchups. That's going to be on YouTube. That's on the FSAN page, also on our Bourbon N Ball page as well. Check that out. But yeah, that is it from us, right? So good luck. Good luck in your fantasy. Hopefully we'll see you back here next week. Check us out on Monday. For Mikey V, I'm Doug. This is Bourbon N Ball. Have a great night, guys.